Welcome to the Relationship Theory, everyone. Here we take those and we break them down, we build them up, and we play them out. Today, we have an interesting topic. It's going to be on, well, you see the title, Forget What You Know About Sex in America. Yeah, we're gonna need to let these things go. And I made up a list of the things that I wanted to cover on this because I think it was vast enough for me to need to write a list down, and I want to break down a few of these things. And to give it a bit of a preface, the way that I want to start this off is by mentioning how difficult relationships and the idea of sex between the gender has become. It's become very difficult. Everything has become very political. It's become very political. There's a discussion about the intangible. There's a discussion about the things that people ought to know themselves before encountering someone or wanting to interact with someone. And when it comes to getting what you want, a part of it really has to do with knowing what you want in the first place. You're not going to receive it and then figure out if you want it or not. If before it comes, you have to know. And that's a bit of where I'm coming from when I say that it's political, because once someone obtains something that they want, what they then do is pick apart all of the pieces that make it what it is, when it actually should be up to you to know what the pieces were before you started picking it apart. And you know, we're talking about real live human beings here. We're talking about human beings who come with their own total packages. So it's really important that we come with our own package first of all. And if we want to treat people like gifts that we unwrap, maybe we should come as a gift as well. So that's the preface, right? But here I want to tackle a few of the things I've written down and maybe break them down if I feel the need. But this is why we're gonna need to forget what we know about sex in America, because we've not been educated very well on what this is. The fact that we're talking about it so much rather than sorry about that, I got a call. But the fact that we're talking about it so much rather than just doing it is a problem in itself. So let me start with this list. I have about maybe 8-9 things. But the very first is that sex is a utility, it's not a measure of expression. We've turned sex into a tool. We've turned sex into, it's an item on the list. It's outside of ourselves. It's like money. We look at sex like money. It's not something that we possess naturally. It's like outside of ourselves. We treat it as if it's a foreign object. We treat it as if we don't know where it came from within us, as if someone else had it, as if someone else created it. And we don't use sex as if it was something that helps us let someone know how we feel about them. We don't use it as if it's something that helps us show someone how we feel or how we feel about ourselves or what we know about ourselves and what we can do. We don't show ourselves or anybody else what sex allows us to do. We don't allow it to be a capability. It's just a utility, which means we look at sex like an expense. Well, what am I going to get out of this if we're going to put this much energy into it, right? That's how we look at sex, and that's not going to work. It's just not going to work because it's not a utility. You can think it is, but it's not. It's a measure of expression. There's so much you can get out of knowing that it's something that helps you develop what you are, rather than it being a static figure that just is what it is and outside of you. It just doesn't work that way. The second is sex is used for barter. So this is a piggyback off the utility, in that it's a question of what are you going to give me if I do this for you, as if it's again not a measure of expression. It's weird because in this case you acknowledge that you have it, you just don't acknowledge that it's worth anything to you or that it's worth something to the other person. So you effectively use sex as a means of leverage, as if it's not a it's a power, it's a tool for power. That's how we like sex is being used. That's really really weird. That's where I'm gonna leave that. It's really weird. Barter. There's so many other things that you can barter off, you can trade off. How about a project for a project? I mean, Instagram and Facebook and Twitter has follow for follow, friend request for friend request, share for share. We have those things. Why don't we use the things that are already outside of ourselves and trade those things rather than use what is underdeveloped, honestly, because it really is. I mean, if you're gonna use sex as a bartering tool, exactly how much practice do you really have in it to think that you can use it against someone else's leverage? You're not really that good at it if all you're doing is trading it and selling it. You're not that good at it. The next is, this one is specific, but it says that women absorb sexual energy into their masculine frames. So this one is actually focused on safety and not women so much. And what I mean by this is, you don't have to take my word for this, but this is what I've noticed. Women naturally absorb energy. They just naturally do. And you don't know this by looking at a woman. You know this by observing how you feel when you look at her. You'll notice that there's an exchange that happens, whether or not she's conscious of it. And that's why she's naturally absorbing energy, regardless of what that is. Now, the trick here, where it gets tricky, is when you notice that if most of the energy that is being sent towards her, whether it's you or whether it's someone else, if she's focused on trying to protect herself, that energy she absorbs goes right into her needing to protect herself. If she's focused on exploring her surroundings, if she's focused on finding another way of making money, if she's focused on protecting the boundaries, trying to build something, to build a boundary of some sort, to hold something down, to stabilize something, all that energy that gets sent towards her, that's where that's going. It's not going towards her. She's not paying attention to it. If she was educated on her own energy, that would be something that she could do, but most are not. And you can see how, again, sex is it's a political thing. It's barter and a utility. Not many people are educated on what sex is, and not even just women, men entirely. So yeah, women absorb sexual energy into their masculine frames. So if she's unconscious of it, what do you think happens when she's absorbing it? If she's not actively diffusing it or using it or aware of it in herself, it goes in and it sits in like fat. And when you eat food and you don't exercise or you don't spend it on cardio, it just sits in like fat. So that's the other thing that happens. Again, it's more so about safety. The next one is technology is changing, making the contemporary old in just a year. Now, this is a universal awareness of safety and the worry of instability and vulnerability. This is where this is, because people in the world, we value technology a lot. We really, really do. I mean, it does wonderful things for us. It allows us at just a few finger taps to give us so many of the things that we need. So many of the things that we need. We barely have to lift a finger, even though we're using our fingers. But the subconscious idea of how easy everything becomes teaches us that if it can change this much, that means that my place and my importance in the world diminishes, and can also change in just as quickly as technology changes. It's just as technology doesn't seem to adapt, it upgrades, it leaves the old behind. That's what it looks like to us if you don't know the background of technology and software. There's certain things that are taken out and put in, but when you look at the front end of things, most of the time it just looks like it's changing, it's upgrading. Things were removed, and now there's no resemblance of what you used to know. Now you just have to adapt, and you have to keep adapting, and that feeling of needing to continue to adapt with no pause or heads up or awareness between each of the changes, it starts to wear down on your ability to stay on top of things at all, especially if you don't have anyone keeping track for you. It just really diminishes your security in yourself. If everything around you is changing, that must mean on a deep level, something inside of you is changing, something that over time starts to look like it's worth much less than you originally thought. It's not true, but it's just what happens over time. It just feels like that. So the next is there's negative energy towards money. When I talk about negative energy, first of all, negativity to me is just really hard light. And I mean, it's negative energy to me is light so dense, you can practically feel it. And the thing about density to me is how things get absorbed into it. So when you have a negative energy towards money, what I'm referring to is the fact that when money comes into that idea of negativity, it just gets sucked into it and there's no escape. But let's think on a practical human level. When you have bad feelings towards something, you don't give it any energy, you don't give it any activity, you don't give it anything that makes it a utility, something that can be developed on. You don't give it anything that can be enhanced. You don't work on it. You don't give it any character. There's no dynamic. There's nothing dynamic about the idea. It stays the way that it is. And when you think of money like that, you're not using money. You're not developing your ideas of money. You're not creating an abundance of it. You're vaporizing the content. By having negative energy about money, you're vaporizing the content. And when you tie that idea in with the fact that money is still something that people need desperately in the world, you're vaporizing the very thing that you think is important, but you're vaporizing it. Where is the real energy going for the thing that people need? It gets really difficult, and it doesn't make you want to have sex. It doesn't make you want to have sex because if you're constantly worried about something that you don't even appreciate that you have, there's no way you feel safe about your body, because what you're trying to do is protect your body, and you need money to make sure that you have food to eat. You need money to ensure you have a place to sleep. You need those things. But when you have a negative energy towards money, even if you are getting the things that you need, you're still living a life that isn't as abundant as you could have. So that's money. There's a negative energy towards family. This one is interesting, but it's more about the idea of community. It's more about the idea of unity. It's more about the idea of closeness, of intimacy. And when you don't have a positive aspect, a positive outlook about family, you are, let's go back to that dense, that very physical, dense black hole kind of idea that I mentioned about money. You have someone who drains the life out of the idea of intimacy. So you give them love, and they don't give anything back to you. You give them closeness, you give them vulnerability, you give them openness, and they don't have anything to give you, because their ideas of family, i.e. intimacy and relativity, they don't have that within them to offer you, because they don't know how to respond to it. And when that's the way you look at the idea of family, that intimacy and that closeness and that unity, tie that back into sex. You're not really interested in having sex. You're not interested in having sex if you are not interested in the idea of intimacy. You People will still have sex without the idea of intimacy, but it's not going to be as fulfilling, and all you're doing is draining not your idea. If you're the negative person, you're not draining your idea of family or sex. You're draining the other person's idea and energy and life of sex from within them towards you, but you're not doing anything with it, and it sits in you, like I said earlier, like fat. So that's on family. Negative energy towards connection is the next one. It's just, this is almost similar to the other ones, but I'll tackle it from the way that I even define connection. I'm really talking about the meeting of the minds, the ability to connect, the ability to refer to something outside of yourself, but to understand that it's something within yourself, and to interpret the information that you're getting in front of you, and to relate back and forth with it. That's what I'm talking about when I say connection. So your inability or negativity towards connecting, towards referencing points that may have a place within you, it drains the life out of anyone else who's trying to give that to you. And when you don't have connection, you don't have a way to reference what sex might mean to you, or how you might purpose it in your own life. And if you don't have a purpose for sex, you're not really going to engage in it, right? You're not. You're just not. So that's that. I also have negative energy towards community. Again, I'm going to use my own personal reference to this, because this is what I talk about on the relationship theory all the time. If you follow me on Instagram, those are my hashtags: connection, conversation, communication. So this one on community, this is about understanding the environment, understanding your surroundings and the ideals of your surroundings, and the people who hold or who may hold the same kind of ideas that you do. When you have negative energy towards community, you automatically dismiss the fact that they may have a purpose for how they integrate other people outside of themselves into themselves for a greater purpose, or for more than just themselves. That would include you and anyone else that they want to adapt to that purpose or those ideals of what a community looks like. Negative energy towards these things means that you're just draining that idea, as if you must be the only one that a community exists by. It is the reason why it exists. And it's not true, for one, but also, if you have negative energy towards community, you don't believe in the idea of community in the first place, do you? You don't really. So if that's the case, you're not really interested in sex in that case either, because you don't really believe in what the other person has to offer either. Negative energy towards men. Again, this one is specific. You can also say this absolutely negative energy towards women. I mean, it's very easy to flip sides and to just reverse it, and that's what you'll get. I would just personally would like a woman to refer to how the negative energy towards men might emotionally affect a woman. But the way I'm looking at this is, as a man, negative energy towards men invalidate, 1, their purpose, 2, their characteristics, 3, their ideas or their ability to connect, or 4, the differences that make them as important as they are. And it turns men into a utility when there's negative energy towards them. They end up becoming a utility, because then the question only ever becomes a bartering situation, which is like, well, I mean, I'll give you this if you give me that, or what do you have to offer? As if you cannot use your own 2 eyes to observe what that kind of thing may be. So the invalidation more so comes from the absorption of any characteristics that a man may have, or any differences that a man may possess, and to pretend that without being a man, you can become one yourself, or that the existence of men doesn't actually have any real fundamental value or purpose to it. So that's negative energy towards men. And then the final one, this one is top tier for me. It's negative energy towards self. Guys, negative energy towards self is it's emotional vampirism, it's nihilism, it's self-destruction, it's self-sabotage on the highest of levels. I actually break down self into something very interesting. And I'll share that here with you guys. But the word self is not a whole word to me. The word self is when I break down each of the letters in the word, I'm really talking about soul evolving light force. And each of those words also break down into one, nature, information, and sound. Without getting too specific and deep into that, all I'm really referring to is the fact that negative energy towards yourself, it drains your ability to understand yourself on a fundamental level. The fact that you are a part of what makes up nature as it is, that you are a part of what makes up information as we know it, and that you are a vibration, and that you are a part of what makes up the sound that travels around in the world. I mean, those are very, very atomic level. But those are very atomic level values that carry the world through the way that they need to go through. Well, I'm losing the words here, but those are very atomic level fundamental values that make the world turn the way that it does. And when you invalidate your idea of self, you're invalidating that the world even has a purpose for spinning the way that it does. You're absorbing all of the potential that comes from a human being that knows themselves and understands themselves, and you are completely maladapting that to the world that is around you. You're corroding and corrupting the world from within and destroying it from that point on the way out. So what you then become is an anathema to the entire world that you're around. Every step you take is like venom. Every step you take is like a black hole. You're only sucking in everything in such a way that there's nothing left behind in your wake, and there's only ever really destruction, if you could consider destruction something of value. I mean, I really want to punch the point home that when you have negative energy towards yourself, you are eating yourself. You're imploding. You're an explosion in reverse. Everything comes into you and nothing escapes. I mean, just think about where all that energy goes if it's never escaping. And needless to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, when that's the kind of way that you carry yourself, your idea of self, there is absolutely no way that sex is anything more than a waste of time. If you even regard time as something as important, it becomes that void of purpose. It becomes that much of an empty, it's just empty. You start to run out of words. Because it becomes hollowed out. There's no more life. So I didn't expect the video to be this long, but I don't mind it, because this is sort of what I'm really trying to do is help everyone understand in this video that this is where we are on July 12th, 2021 right now. This is your emotional outlet. This is your emotional medium. This is your emotional newsroom, you could say, for where we are on this day of this month. This is what we're looking at right now. Forget what you know about sex in America, because this is how a lot of the things that I've listed, this is how a lot of people actually look at themselves. This is how people look at sex. This is how people look at money. This is how people look at family, friends, romance. All of these questions and the way that we argue about weird things and the way that we politicize every little thing, whether it's tangible or intangible, it really makes it difficult to just have something as simple as sex. Anything that you need to talk about that's intangible is a you problem. It's a very personal thing that you should be writing in journals about. That's something that you figure out yourself. What you need to do is turn intangible ideas, things that you don't believe in. What you need to do is solidify your ideas about the stuff that you don't believe in. But arguing other people out of their stances of stuff that you don't believe in is still you believing in it. All you're doing is trying to put out the light wherever you go when it comes to what people don't believe as far as what you believe. I mean, they believe the opposite of you, and you're just trying to put the light out, and you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. To prove your own point, you're wasting your time. But anyway, I'm not trying to talk specifically to anyone that might resonate with that message. Again, this is your emotional news update. This is the emotional forecast. And yeah, this is the emotional environment that we live in today. That there's a terrible lack of self-education. There's an immense lack of what it means to know yourself as a human being. A lot of people weren't educated on what emotions mean or how to use them, or what it means when you feel something, or when you look a certain way, or when you hear something from someone. A lot of people have no idea what these sounds and these colors mean, or what music even means. They just know things are happening, and it's not helping. It's not helping our environment. It's not helping the community. There are too many people on an individual level that are severely uneducated about their own emotional states, even as simple as just being happy. And that is not good. It's not good at all. But I hope that you continue to follow me on these RT vlogs, because these are the things that I am tackling on a regular basis. I hope you can stick with me through this, because we're gonna need it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day.